In my previous video, I introduced a clear vision for America. I identified its most salient problems. I asked how we can reunify America by strengthening each state and consequently the entire union from the ground up, without subverting the authority of the top down. I warned against choosing Kamala Harris, but I also made it clear that choosing Trump would lead to autocracy. America chose its president, and the consequences are now being felt nationwide. Of course, the other option was first suggested in the 1945 comedy Brewster's Millions, which was remade in 1989 starring Richard Pryor. So by 1945, Hollywood had already explored the idea that ordinary people have little direct influence on the decisions of those we place in power. But by 1989, we still did not have the technology to offer an alternative to human representatives. And today, democracy is barely surviving. The blurring of the lines between private and public sectors is eroding our democratic institutions. But there is a solution. We have the technology. We can rebuild our democracy by adding a layer of artificial intelligence where each citizen can be heard directly by the legislature, the executive, and the judicial branch. We now have the capability to make the world's first cybernetic democracy. Our democracy can be more resilient to authoritarian control. And in today's show, I'm going to show you how we can do it on a shoestring budget. For too long, most Americans have felt disconnected from their government, unable to make their voices heard or to hold those in power accountable. We cannot be heard directly in Congress, in the White House, or even in the courts without a representative. We live in a system where money can buy a presidential election. Our system is undeniably broken. The consequences are dire. The federal government is being gutted. Unelected officials have access to all of your personal information. Using tariffs to disrupt the global economy, the White House is making enemies out of our allies. This is already having direct consequences for the US dollar and emboldening competing currencies like BRICS. Our current system is riddled with flaws. Gerrymandering rigs elections. Campaign finance corrupts politicians, and judicial systems too often seem inaccessible and unresponsive. Without confidence in all three branches of our government, small business will stop taking chances and go out of business. Without small businesses, all that will remain is multi-trillion-dollar corporations. In 2008, America learned that the banks were too big to fail. But if there's such a thing as too big to fail, then the opposite is also true, that you and I are too small to succeed. We see this in countless examples, from Citizens United, which flooded our elections with dark money, to the weakening of the Voting Rights Act, which disenfranchised voters and undermined fair elections. Judicial corruption, as exposed in countless cases, leaves everyday citizens without recourse, powerless against well-funded interests. To understand the problem, we need to turn the clock back to ancient Greece, where democracy began. Citizens would vote directly in all civic matters by placing either a white stone for yes in an urn or a black stone for no. They did not have representatives. The Greek word democracy literally means the people govern, because demo is the root word for people. On the other hand, the Union itself is the republic, so we live in a democratic republic, not in a pure democracy. Rome, on the other hand, had an empire to govern. Rome instituted a republic where their citizens elected representatives to address and legislate their concerns. This form of democracy was chosen by our own forefathers to govern the newly formed United States of America. But this representative model has its own inherent limitations. Representatives, to the extent that they're honest, struggle to address the diverse needs of their many constituents. Citizens often lack the legal and technical expertise to engage effectively with complex political and legal issues. Communication channels are frequently inefficient and opaque, leaving citizens feeling disconnected from their government. This is why Rome could not hold on to its republic. A charismatic military leader named Julius Caesar rendered the representative senators virtually powerless. That's why some of them murdered him on the Ides of March. His death led to a civil war, and he was succeeded by another dictator, Augustus Caesar, and a long line of authoritarian leaders, with many becoming increasingly monarchical and exercising significant power, including Tiberius, Caligula, Nero, and later emperors like Diocletian, who further centralized power within the empire until the Roman Empire ultimately fell. If we do not pay heed to history, we too can lose our democratic republic to some not-so-charismatic, power-hungry leader. After all, the French Republic, after a bloody revolution to rid themselves of a monarchy, handed over all authority to the Emperor Napoleon, and Germany chose its autocratic Adolf Hitler. If we do not learn from history, and if we do not choose to govern ourselves, no matter how difficult and messy that can be, then we too can be ruled by another iron fist. Winston Churchill's accomplishments, particularly during World War II, include his leadership as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, where he became known for his stirring speeches and determination in the face of adversity. He was instrumental in bolstering British morale and resistance against Nazi Germany, advocating for alliances with other nations, and playing a key role in the eventual victory of the Allies. In contrast, Winston Smith, the protagonist in George Orwell's dystopian novel 1984, embodies the struggle against oppressive totalitarianism. Unlike Churchill's proactive leadership and influence, Winston Smith represents the average individual's powerlessness against an omnipresent regime that manipulates truth and limits freedom. This contrast highlights themes of resilience and the individual's role in society, with Churchill standing as a figure of inspiration and agency, while Smith exemplifies despair under authoritarian control. But now we have a better way. Technology can bridge the gap between citizens and each branch of their government, the legislative, the executive, and the judicial, thereby ensuring greater transparency and accountability. Artificial intelligence offers that revolutionary potential. Imagine a system where citizens could suggest bills to change the law in their own communities, at the state level, or even at the federal level. Imagine having your own personal AI to analyze these legislative proposals, identify biases, predict legal and economic consequences, and facilitate those discussions in contrast with the suggestions of other users in your community, thereby transforming the legislative process and making it far more transparent for everyone. But the current oppressive regime has us all busy earning a living. Some of us have to work 2 jobs just to afford basic necessities like groceries. Each of us has to focus on what we do best. It's not reasonable to ask us to be our own politicians, our own lawyers, or even our own president. I'm not the first to suggest this possibility, but I may be the first to recognize that the devil's in the details. Projects like ChatGPT is OpenAI's broader attempt to do just that. Money is the root of all necessary evil. Money is the detail that corrupts everything. We've seen this same problem in the private sector. Sam Altman, founder of OpenAI, quickly learned that his open source research could be readily exploited by powerful corporations. Elon Musk made a $97 billion offer to buy OpenAI, which disrupted Sam Altman's plans to potentially take the company fully private. OpenAI became a capped profit company in 2019, allowing it to attract investment while still being governed by a non-profit board. Elon Musk's offer aimed to prevent Sam Altman from fully privatizing the company, which would have shifted its governance structure. Altman publicly rejected the offer, which demonstrates the complexities of maintaining OpenAI's direction. Elon Musk's bid was tied to a demand that OpenAI abandon its for-profit model aspirations. Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter exposed how a private entity can profoundly influence public discourse. And my own litigation, Bernier versus Travelers, which I've attached in the comments below, demonstrates how a seemingly private entity can manipulate the judicial system, leaving ordinary citizens with no access to justice, even if those citizens paid their insurance premiums. Ms. Bernier and I chose to handle Travelers' corruption the honest way. But how did that benefit us? Like I said in my earlier videos, even though Travelers Insurance is supposed to be a private entity, what happened to us occurred under color of law, because the California Department of Justice, then administered by Kamala Harris, actively obstructed justice. Justice delayed is justice denied. But after 17 years, even if Ms. Bernier finally does get justice at 81 years old, that will still be justice denied, because that judgment will be a Pyrrhic victory. So what's the alternative? Is the approach by Luigi Mangione to insurance corruption the right way to resolve disputes? In the eyes of the public, Luigi's a hero, but in the eyes of the state of New York and the federal government, he's a terrorist. And ultimately, only Nintendo stockholders get a boost, which is another private corporation. So like I said, I'm not the first to suggest using artificial intelligence as an added layer of governance. For example, Elon Musk now wants to release a government services AI chatbot for the U.S. General Services Administration. His GSAI project is intended to improve efficiency in government operations. The project is being funded through the Department of Government Efficiency, which was established as part of Trump's efforts to improve government operations. But whether the government borrows the money or just prints the money, the result is either inflation or a higher national deficit. On the other hand, Bitcoin was not created by the government. What makes Bitcoin valuable is supply and demand, like any other commodity. Bitcoin has no intrinsic value. So is there intrinsic value to an independent AI-powered cyber union which would act to check and balance our existing government? If so, then that value is a commodity which would have its own supply and demand. But in order to be democratic, that supply would need to meet the equal demands of each of its users. That's what this AI-powered cyber union will achieve. The project can be funded through its own blockchain, like Bitcoin. This quasi-governmental cyber union would therefore be funded by what's known as modern monetary theory. To understand modern monetary theory, we have to start with Keynesian Economics, which is a school of thought that focuses on how government intervention can stabilize the economy. It's based on the theories of British economist John Maynard Keynes, who is considered the founder of modern macroeconomics. Keynesian economics is made up of several macroeconomic models that focus on how aggregate demand affects economic output and inflation. Keynesians believe that, because prices are somewhat rigid, fluctuations in any component of spending, consumption, investment, or government expenditures cause output to change. If government spending increases, for example, and all other spending components remain constant, then output will increase. But back in the days of John Maynard Keynes, there was no internet, no Bitcoin, no artificial intelligence, and therefore nobody had a digital identity. So to make this cyber union a reality, we need to rethink Keynesian economics to include digital identities. You might ask, why should you care about your digital identity? Or even what a digital identity is? Well, the answer to the second question answers the first. Your digital identity is the sum of your digital exhaust, coming out of all Internet of Things devices 24/7 and all the things you do on a daily basis that is captured and digitized, such as going to your doctor or walking down a street in downtown London. Your digital identity is a multi-dimensional picture of the digital you, your financial data, your social data, your media and entertainment data, your e-commerce data, your healthcare data, your mobility and transportation data, your legal data, the data of every aspect of your life, which Elon Musk is now thrilled to be in possession of. This is important because you have virtually no control over your own data and what is being done with it by others such as governments or companies, even though your digital identity is created by you. This is why you should care. You don't think so? Let me explain. If someone asked you, what makes Google money? You would probably answer advertisement. That's a good answer, but not exactly the right one. If you want to see Google's money machine up close and personal, just take a good look in the mirror. It's you and every single user of Google's services and products. Google sucks up the personal online data of every user 24/7. This data and the insights generated from it about you is then sold to the highest bidder to place ads in front of you. This advertisement just happens to fit into the context you are in at the very moment you see the advertisement. Are you driving your new Tesla? Well, how about the nearest rapid charging station? Of course, Google is not the only company to monetize your personal data. Facebook, Amazon, Snapchat, and other social media companies do it too. There is a whole $100 billion global data industry that buys and aggregates data from many different sources with companies the average person has never even heard of, such as Axiom or BlueKai. It is true that you are getting free products and services in exchange for your personal data. So then let's see how much Google makes from your data. In 2024, Google's advertising revenue was $264.59 billion or $72.5 billion in the fourth quarter. This was a 10.5% increase from the previous year, but half of the growth rate of Meta, otherwise known as Facebook. In 2024, Google's total revenue was $348.16 billion, its highest ever. 75% of Google's revenue came from advertising, while 11.5% came from subscriptions, platforms, and devices. In comparison, YouTube ad revenue in the fourth quarter was $10.47 billion, a 14% increase from the previous year. So this translates to the fact that Google generates roughly $4 to $5 per user per month globally. Is that a fair trade? You might say yes. But Google is not the only one making money from your data. Everyone else does the same thing, including companies such as Axiom and BlueKai, from which you do not get anything in return for your data. Is that really fair to you and the rest of the online world? Shouldn't you and I have the option to participate in that monetization? Now let's assume for a moment that we consider all of this good and well. So what about the security of your personal data with those companies? Not only is your data monetized, but also stored everywhere across the world in an unencrypted way almost 100% of the time. This matters because your data and that of hundreds of millions of other people is being sold right now on the dark web, where illicit goods and services are being traded as freely as they are on eBay. This is possible because those companies that hold your data are being hacked all the time. And quite often, they do not realize that they have been hacked for over 250 days with exploits such as living off the land. That's an average number reported by IBM in 2015, 10 years ago. Hundreds of millions of personal records, your records, most likely stolen and monetized on the dark web. If you want tools to illicitly get access to the personal data of other people and possibly bribe them to take it back, no problem. The dark web has just what the doctor ordered. Malware, phishing, and ransomware can be bought on the dark web as easily as you can buy software online, including customer support. And if that's not scary enough, your brand new Chevy SUV with OnStar online emergency support, or your Tesla with mobile Wi-Fi can be easily hacked. Your personal data stolen, and, if so desired, your car can be literally taken over to wreak havoc on others. And it does not stop with your car. The list goes on. Your smartphone, your Nest thermostat, your smart meter, your Wi-Fi router, your new TV, etc. They all hold personal information and can be used to spy on you and steal your personal information at all times from pretty much anywhere. And Trump might even argue that your Nest thermostat caused him to lose the election in 2020. And it's not limited to hackers and the dark web anymore. Now we have unelected officials who have access to all of your data under the guise of government efficiency. So what does this mean for all of us? First, it means that our digital identity is very valuable. It can be easily monetized. In fact, it's the most valuable asset you have when you look at it holistically. Second, it means that unless we take concerted steps to reclaim ownership and control over our personal data, we could lose everything we've worked hard for throughout our entire lives. The title of the movie, Gone in 60 Seconds, will be applicable to your bank account balance and your available credit card limits, not to mention all your personal digital photos and videos holding cherished memories that can be lost forever. And it will take a hacker focused only on your accounts under an hour to achieve all of that. So in summary, companies monetize your personal data and do not share the revenue with you. They lose all of your data, and as a consequence, your identity gets stolen with potentially significant financial and legal repercussions. And you are pretty much powerless to put a stop to this at this moment, unless you want to pay for protection from another company and hope that the company you choose is better than the hackers. So what can be done to give our personal data, our digital identities back to us, and how can we protect it ourselves? This is why you should have the right to tell your government what new laws should exist. This is not a private benefit you can purchase. It's a public right, which the government owes you. And it's one of the many reasons why I propose a new kind of governance, a cyber union that empowers individuals to participate directly in safeguarding their own rights and freedoms. But what about concerns over bias from artificial intelligence or lack of transparency? These are valid concerns. To address this, we propose a decentralized system that balances the benefits of AI with community oversight. Designing large language models that suit public needs must be accomplished by the working class. This is a grassroots movement, a decentralized network where each citizen has access to their own AI trifecta, a legislative AI, an executive AI, and a judicial AI. This approach doesn't seek to replace our current government. Instead, it adds an additional layer of citizen representation, a direct line to the sources of power that govern us. Each AI will process information, identify critical issues, and make informed recommendations, all within the existing legal framework. These personal AIs will sift through data, identify critical issues, and provide users with informed recommendations. The system will work at the local zip code granular community level, then connecting to state and even national levels to ensure that every voice is heard and that all issues are appropriately addressed. This AI-powered cyber union will help you organize your thoughts, research the issue, and identify all critical details in order to communicate more effectively to those in your community. This AI-powered cyber union will help you make your voice heard as a matter of right, without having to pay a private company to do it, and without requiring special training or legal expertise. You will simply interact with your own personal AI trifecta using your own expertise and knowledge, no matter what your job, profession, or walk of life may be. Imagine an AI that has your back in every transaction you make in order to prevent disputes from arising, and should a dispute nevertheless arise, then assists judges in legal research, detecting bias, and ensuring fairness in judicial decisions. This isn't science fiction, it's happening now. Most of us have seen the YouTube commercials that ask us if we've been in a car accident, and if so, to use a website which processes our litigation automatically rather than to call an attorney who might be interested in taking your money but not in preparing and pleading your case to a judge. But those kinds of automated systems are still centralized and owned by lawyers. The AI-powered cyber union that I propose would decentralize this automated judicial system and make it a free government service where the victims get 100% of the judgment that is owed for any kind of dispute. The benefits are significant: improved access to information, enhanced representation, and greater control over government processes. It's a system designed by the working class, for the working class. So do you want to help build a better future? Leave a comment below and let's start this conversation. Unfortunately, the Bernier versus Travelers litigation in Connecticut is still pending, which takes most, if not all, of my time. But I remain committed to advancing democracy, and I remain hopeful that my Connecticut litigation will come to a positive resolution shortly. More information will be posted as soon as it becomes available, and I have the time to upload another YouTube video. Thank you.